Everybody get up, no need to cram now. We got a real jam going down, going down, going down, going down, going down, going down. Welcome to the IntelliJAMS.
Are back jamming and excited for this jam. I've got another fellow podcaster joining me today. I've got Shiva, who is the lead strategist at Motive and the host of the From A to B podcast. Dude, I'm excited to jam because I've been seeing a lot of spicy takes. I've been seeing a lot of great meme content in the social sphere. Happy to have you here, man. And I just want to jam kind of like politics, what's going on in the testing and experimentation space, kind of like any hot takes, the spice that's happening in the social sphere right now.
To be clear, it's not geopolitics. We don't want to go down that route because none of us have got time for that.
It'll be a 3-hour podcast if we do that. We don't got
be
time
dumber for it after. Have you ever had any other podcasters on the show before? I'm doing my podcasting thing. I'm interviewing you, but have you ever had any other podcasters on the show before?
I have not. Everyone who has been on the podcast is either someone internal at IntelliGems, a brand that we work with, an agency, potentially getting an author to come on soon, but no other podcasters.
Have you had any other award-winning podcasters come on your show, or is it just me?
So no podcasters. This will be the first podcaster in an award-winning podcaster.
I have to say, it's the first time I've in a setting I've been able to say I won an award. So I had to just say here, sorry for everyone. I am this much of an asshole. Welcome.
I was saying before we started, I'm all about the plugs. I'm all about the grind of the podcast life. We'll get his podcast linked in the show notes as well, so everyone can go give it a follow and a listen. But dude, maybe the spot to start is like when we say we're not talking about geopolitics, we're talking about just like politics as it comes to an experimentation program. Again, for everyone listening, we're talking about experimentation in the context of like commerce, the online side of things. What is like when you say, hey, politics is becoming a problem, or like, hey, there's a lot of politicking in testing and experimentation, like what does that mean to you?
To literally build a test is pretty logical and simple. Like you just have to inject code into a tool and then launch it, let it run for a period of time, and then make a decision. Like the logistics of it, obviously way oversimplifying, are generally pretty easy, but every step of the way there is humans involved in the process. No, AI won't get rid of this. AI won't take you away from the politics part because humans will always be involved. But it's like, okay, to get a testing tool installed requires politics because you have politics with your engineers. You have politics with the people who you like have to purchase the tool with on your team. To get like designs approved, there's politics. To get engineering resourcing and all that stuff approved, to even make a decision when you have the data, it's politics. Like there's just, when I say politics, it's like what's the human part of the engine of experimentation, because humans are driving a large part of that.
I like the human part there. So something I say is like, hey, instrumentation's easy, people are hard. Like you were saying, you want to run a test, build it, launch it, split traffic to it, read it. The build is like pretty simple. I think like where all the politics happen is like the pre and post, right? Like the ideation, what's actually worth testing, how do I put something in place, and then like the readout that happens after. So like the human element, and like I guess like some of the things that I see, and maybe they're similar to what you're seeing, is like the politics of like even reading the data. If like someone comes with an agenda, and if someone comes with like, my boss's boss cares about these things, so I want to like get this readout to fit that agenda, versus like, this is what it's actually saying. Like I've heard people refer to it as like metric shopping, or like different things like this, where it's like you're just like, someone's going to try to look at this and make it say what they want it to say. And if you're just looking at the data and you weren't the person who actually instrumented the test, you can just read it however you want, not necessarily the way it was intended.
You know, it's funny. That's almost like a better problem to have than not even running the test, because at least the test is running. And like, I don't know, I keep on going back to like, so many people just don't want to run a test in the first place. So like is it arguable to have someone metric shop, but you at least ran the test, and at least there's a chance for you to convince them that there's a different way? I'd almost like rather have that than not run the test. I was talking to Stuart about this, and not so subtle plug for like another episode I did with him. Uh, Getting from 0 to 1 test is maybe harder than getting from like 1 to 5 or 5 to 10 or 10 to 20. And that's the argument I made. It's a very philosophical argument. There's no right or wrong. But for that same reason, almost like the politics of getting anything tested is just some of the hardest politics to get through. And even if you're in a, let's say, 2, 3 out of 5 maturity level experimentation program, that doesn't mean you're testing every single decision. That doesn't mean you're even testing the most important business decisions. Some things, logistically speaking, are just going to be impossible. Some things you just like, you have to like not fight the battle, because if you die on that hill, you're just like, you're never gonna, yeah, you might run that one button color test, but like when it comes to the important shit, you already cashed in your like political capital and coinage. So it's like, there's a lot of emotional intelligence that I think is just required in this field. And understanding stakeholders, getting to know them, working with them. I wonder what you think about this. It almost feels like CRO experimentation people need a strong product background. The good ones have that strong product background and they treat it like a product rather than as like a lab coat CRO A/B testing thing.
Yeah, I think there's kind of like three personalities inside of like an experimentation program. You have like someone who has like a lot of technical acumen. You've got people who've got a lot of like business acumen. And then you have people who are more like financial acumen, where it's like, I've been calling it the implementer, the channel owner, the P&L owner. It's like someone here is responsible for like the profit and loss of the entire business, not like the channel, not the individual test, but like, hey, I'm on the hook for this business is making money, yes or no. Might be a founder, might be a VP, might be like depending on the size of the business. And then like in that, I think the sweet spot is like someone who is responsible for a channel, like direct to consumer or like the website. Like, hey, there might be a bunch of retail stuff happening, but like that person has enough kind of like business acumen, but like also understands the tech stack and like can go and pull the levers and push the buttons and like do some of those things where they have enough. They can kind of like speak all the languages, right? It's like, hey, I can go in and get into the nitty gritty details of like how a test was orchestrated or instrumented, and like, hey, what are the actual stats I'm seeing or metrics I'm seeing inside of that test, and then relate it back up into that like financial owner who doesn't really give a shit what got test, like what the test was or why it was done. They're just looking at kind of like something at a higher level. And I think what you were hitting at before with the like, hey, I burned all my social capital on the small shit. It's like, whatever, it doesn't matter. I want to test some of the bigger stuff. So I think a lot of that stuff actually kind of dies on the vine, because if you can't relate it back up, like, hey, here's like the overall business strategy, you can't really get anything going. And a line I've been using lately is like, hey, you don't want to be planning the tests. You want to test the plan. It's like, where are you going? What is important? Like, what is everyone talking about right now that is strategically important or keeping them up at night? And like, how do we test into those things rather than just being like, I'm going to build a roadmap of small UX tweaks and changes over the next, call it 2 months. Cool. Those are like two different types of tests. And I think that like the person who is kind of like uniquely in the middle, maybe it is what you were saying, it's like a product person, but like they're just able to speak. Someone has to be able to speak both languages, or else you get sucked into the day-to-day small tests, or you get pulled to the other side and test nothing.
So I think if I had to rephrase or slightly rejigger what you said, I think it's a CROs who are successful or who can have the basis or foundation to be successful are T-shaped marketers. They
Yep.
have experience and they can speak the language across a multitude of things: business sense and acumen, engineering, design. Can you take a Figma mockup from napkin sketch to final? No. Can you dev a test from napkin mat? Whatever. the first line of code to
Whatever it
the
is, yeah.
yeah, obviously you could tell I'm not an engineer. But I know I understand the principles around them and I could speak their language. So that's what makes you able to politic better is if you can actually speak their language versus I'm sure you've dealt with this. If some leader comes in and is just telling you how to do your job properly without understanding any of the intricacies, like, oh, let's just like like a leader will just come and like add site search to our site and do it in a week, and it's like, dog, that's not how it works. And you won't gain any trust in that leader versus if that leader comes down and they're like, hey, I'd love to add some type of search capability to our site. Maybe we could use this vendor. And maybe they don't have the end-to-end specs, but they're kind of speaking like, okay, you get it. I'll work with this person that builds trust. So I think it's like more of a T-shaped marketer than like, I think what you're saying is a T-shaped marketer. I think those are the same words.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. And like even using the word marketer there, like, hey, not a T-shaped CRO specialist. Like I think like when you are thinking about experimentation, you have to think of it in the terms of like marketing for the business rather than like, hey, it's the scientific or it's like the science only side of this on like the small individual tests. I think like even labeling that a T-shaped marketer is interesting to me.
I'd say know your audience. Like there are some people who, when you talk to them, they want to nerd out. Like they really want to go deep in the weeds. They love that shit. So if they love it, slop it over with them. Like throw like a pig to the trough. Like get them involved because they're gonna be your biggest allies if they can partner with you and you can collab on the data. But then there's some people who like, there's some product marketers who I've worked with who are like, we'll run the test. I like tell me what we should test, get it from A to B, and then launch the thing. I say that a lot. It's funny, but like just do all the work and tell me, are we shipping this or not? And if we're not shipping, why? And if it is, what are the results? In some ways, that's a bit of like, it'll take some work for you to get to that level of trust that a product marketer will let you get that. But some people operate on that. It's like, just tell me what we need to do. And I will get everything and I will remove the blockers for you to do that. So it's kind of just know your audience, know the people you're talking to. I'll say even within like my current company, there's even within like the same product marketing team, I have to talk differently and not to say like manipulative, but like some people like to be in the weeds and be super involved in things. Other people don't. They're like, oh, you want to launch a winter test on this thing? Go do it. Let me know when the results are there. Let's chat about the results when you have them. And it's like, all right, great. Just meet them where they are. But yeah, dude, like don't that's why as you know me, I hate rules. I think there's a lot of rule making in our industry because people are looking for a ton of shortcuts. Fuck it, dude. Like rules are made to be broken.
You said, hey, it's not manipulative. Someone once told me, Alex, it's not manipulative, it's influence. So I've just been I've been swapping those two things all the time. Like if you're doing it for the right reasons, it's influence. It's not.
Yeah, but who are you to say if it's the right reasons? You know what I mean?
All right. So you were hitting on like the getting from 0 to 1 in testing, the politics involved in that. You ever seeing the opposite side of this? So I see this semi-frequently. I actually see this more in like the SaaS world than I see it in kind of commerce is just test it as kind of like a fallback to being like, I don't really know what I want to do. I'm pretty like lackadaisical about like what the approach should be here. Or someone will just say like, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to test it as kind of like, I don't know, air cover, air support on like, well, if this goes poorly, don't worry because I'm going to be looking at it. You see that on the political side at all?
I don't know where this discourse came from, but they're like adjacent to that are people who are like, if you are delegating your thinking to A/B testing, then you're just not confident or smart enough, and you should just conduct more research and be more confident and have conviction in your results and what you're doing. And I'm like, well, you're misunderstanding A/B testing. But I also get where that is the counter to the other side of like, if you're just, I guess it's called spaghetti test. I guess that's spaghetti testing. I know spaghetti testing is just like throw it at the wall and see what sticks. It's like spaghetti testing adjacent. It's just like test maybe it's not spaghetti testing, whatever. But like, when I think about like harm reduction and the discourse around what I see on LinkedIn and even talking to people, it's like, would I rather the discourse of just test it over not? Yes, I would much rather prefer that. Same thing like when you ask me, like, some people are just metric shopping. Would I rather that than not running the test? Kind of. That's debatable, but like kind of, I think I'd rather prefer that. Is that the best? No, but in some ways, you just have to get people going through the motions of testing. I've said this to other people too. Like we were just talking about basketball offline. The analogy I say is like, if like you're, do you have children?
I do. I have a
Okay.
son.
Okay, how old is he?
He is 4.
Okay, so your 4-year-old son, right? If you were to pick up a basketball and he doesn't know how to like dribble the ball, he keeps on double dribbling. When he shoots, he doesn't like flick his wrist. Are you gonna be like, dude, you suck at basketball? Look at what LeBron. No, you're gonna be like, no, like double dribble, and you know how the refs are in these leagues, right? They're pretty. They're like, just have fun.
You can double dribble whenever you want.
That's totally fine. Just let them do that, because the time for them to talk about these things is not when they're 4 years old. And that the analogy is like low maturity experimentation programs. It's better to run a shitty test with the eye of like, I know it's probably not the best, but let me start the ball. I know I'll get better. That part's critical. I think what people might misunderstand with this quote is like, oh, a shitty test is better than or a shitty test is better than, a shitty test is worse than no test at all. In some ways, yes. But if your eye is like, I don't know everything, but I will improve my process and I will take it in, but I have to start somewhere, that's the eye. What's bad is if you're like, I don't know, I don't care, this is the best because AI told me, so I'm going to do it. That's bad. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to dribble for the rest of my life. No, of course, your child should not do that. But if they're going to dribble first, who cares, dude? Let them double dribble. They'll get better.
Is it a Walt Disney quote? The best way to get started is to get started. I think like if you're going 0 to 1, like you said, it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be as buttoned up as like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like who has like crazy experimentation teams, like a Wayfair or like one of like the biggest online brands in the world. Like you're not going to start there. So like to say, hey, I'm not that, I can't go, is a really bad decision, because the alternate is what? Just guess, do whatever you want, and just like hope for the best result possible.
You know what's interesting on that? By the way, it's going from A to B, not from A to Z. You don't have to get to the Z. I love this. So I'm gonna keep on plugging that. I wonder what you think about this. Do you feel like it's intimidating for people trying to break into experimentation when they see these larger companies testing so much, like running thousands of tests a month, and they're like, I can't even get one. I like, it's not imposter syndrome? Maybe it is, but it's also like, why the fuck am I even doing this? I don't even know if there's a path for me to get to 1,000. And it's like, at the end of the day, dog, like, just run more tests. Romeo Santiago had this quote, and it's like, it's not run an X amount or increase your velocity by Y. It's like, whatever you're doing, just test more. If whatever you're at, just do better. You don't have to be the best to be better. I could go shoot ball at the rec center. That's good cardio. I could game. I'm not good, but I could game, right? Like, that's okay. I'm not projected to become drafted and join the NBA, but you don't have to be in the NBA to play ball.
My draft eligibility is over, so we're all we're all good.
To be fair, to clear of everyone here, there was a chance that you were going to be drafted purely on your skill level. It's the only reason you're not going to make it to the show is just because of eligibility. That's the only reason.
Yes. So what are my thoughts on that? I think like one of the most common questions we hear at IntelliJAMS when people are getting started is like, how many tests should, like, there's 2 flavors of this. How many tests should I be running in a given period of time? They might say a week, they might say a month, sometime in there. And then like, what are other people doing? How many tests are other people doing? And like, my response, and we just had an episode on this, is almost always like, I wouldn't be searching for outputs. I would be searching for outcomes. Like you were saying, like, test as much as you can or as little as you need to go and get you the answer. Like, ask an important question, validate an important decision. If you're doing those and you're getting the outcomes you need, even if you're only running a singular test per month, you're learning something critical that's going to help the business move forward, which is like, I would prefer that over, well, I need to get a roadmap over, like, I need to have a month's worth of potential tests that I can run in order for me to get started because I don't want to run out of ideas. Best way to get started is to get started and have, like, you were talking about it before, where it's like, hey, I need to have like a strong hypothesis going in. Like, I can't just be like test shit to test shit. It's like, I need to have a hypothesis for what I'm testing. And that's why I like this, like, outcomes versus outputs is, don't put a test together to test something random. Put a test together to validate an important decision, answer a strategic question, like the politics at the beginning of this. Bonus points if I can relate that into something that, like, the business cares about, my boss cares about, because, like, now I can kind of like clear the runway for that experimentation rather than having it blocked.
You know what's funny? You said bonus points. I want to challenge you. I wonder if it is bonus points or is that the bare minimum? And I say that as like, are you a booking, an Amazon, a Walmart with unlimited resources and time and a mature, like, if you have unlimited things, I would love for you to just test as much as you can with everything, even if there's no strong hypothesis. If you have the capacity and like resourcing and politics are not a limiting factor, go fucking test every single little thing you possibly can, right? There's like 4 companies in the world who could do that. Slightly more
Probably
than that,
not
but
listening to this podcast.
hey, they might, because we're awesome people, okay? But I think the idea is like, is it table stakes to like be solving the problems? Because that's what's building the trust in your program. To me, like, if you're just getting the flywheel started, you're like, I just installed a new tool, I have a new process, I built a new Airtable, I just started this new job, like all this stuff, whatever you might have. If you're just getting the flywheel spinning, test small random stuff. Just test but the focus is that's a test of the process, not a test of like experimentation. It's like, does our process work? Am I waiting way too long? Is like design team needs something different for their input? Like that's a test of process. But as soon as you check the process is working enough that you could start spinning the wheel, immediately you should start prioritizing business problems, because that's what sets the stage. And that's where I think politics is so important, that you have to, in many ways, you have to unlearn people from their preconceived notions about testing. I won't go off about the discourse of CRO. It pisses me off sometimes when people kind of talk about us. To be clear, it's not unique to us. Like SEO, AEO, like it's
Anything.
it's not a CRO unique problem, but you have to set the basis that like what we're doing is solving business problems or researching ways to solve business problems. And like, if you're not solving or identifying these problems and you're testing button colors, you're immediately starting the decrease in trust if you're just testing like random shit that doesn't align with the people. And I think even early on, it might be more valuable for you to spend a little bit more time and really understand the business, really understand the stakeholders, really understand the shit that's important to them. Even if stuff is losing, if you're giving them valuable research of like, oh, I'm glad we didn't ship that because now we have data, it doesn't work. That builds the trust, and then that will come back to you, that they'll give back to you to start testing broader stuff. That's the politics game, baby.
Yeah, you convinced me. It's not a bonus point. It's just like, you have to do it. And like, it honestly can be as simple as just asking like, hey, what could change the business? What's been something that's been like on your mind? What has been something that has been on the docket to do for a really long time, but we view it as like time consuming, risky? Like, there's a gajillion things that experimentation can help you reduce. Perceived risk, the amount of time to go do something. We're going to carve out a small subsection. We're going to do this in a scrappy way. And like, if you can learn something that helps point the compass from like, hey, I know we need to go west, to actually it's northwest. And then the next experiment is it's northwest. And like, you just get more precise over time. Like you were saying, I can learn small things that play into the bigger picture, or I can learn small things that are small things, and like, that could help from a process perspective, and it could help with like building trust. But hey, if it's random all over the board, it's not actually like moving us in the direction that we need to go, and like validating that is actually the direction we should be going in.
Yeah. And the other part of the politics is like, read the room. Because like you said, sometimes there is the avenue for CRO to jump in and run a test and get some stuff working. I say this as a person who wants to A/B test as much as we can. there's just some things that it's not worth it for the longer term health of your program to test, and that might sound spicy, but the reality is it's a long game. You might lose the battle, but you might win the war. And it should I kind of I the analogy works, but I kind of hate it because you shouldn't be at war with your coworkers, right? But the principle is like you might not win every single decision. You might not be able to test every little thing. And it's okay if you recommend a test and then they say, we don't have time. And you say, okay, all good. Let's get it next time or tell me earlier because I could run the test without compromising your deadline. But if you're that annoying guy who's like in their ear just being so fucking annoying about the test that you didn't run, they're not going to want to talk to you again. I don't want to talk to that guy. Or girl, sorry. I'm not trying to gender this, but
I 1000% agree. Like the battle versus the war, you got to build your social capital aggressively and like spend it wisely, right? It's like, hey, do I want to test everything? Sure. If someone wants to move fast on something and they're like, I don't want to test this thing, is it worth having a debate and going back and forth on that for 2 hours with someone just for them to say no anyway? Like, again, read the room. Like, sometimes you just got to say no. You got to let it go in order to pursue like the bigger picture.
But there's also a limiting principle too, where like if you're working with that person, it has to be a give and take. Where if it's like, hey, I want to run this test. No. Okay. 2 weeks. Hey, I want to run this test. No. Okay. Hey, I want to run this test. Fuck you. No. Okay. Well, look, like we at some point, it's got to be a give and take. If you're running into that problem where every single time they're blocking it, I'd say sometimes that's just the way people are. Sometimes you're going to meet people who will just never run a test or they would rather have their teeth pulled without Novocaine than run a test. You will just meet people like that. It just exists. The reality is there might be something deeper, and if you keep on getting blocked, try and have an off-the-cuff conversation. Be like, what is your hesitation? Because there might be something deeper. It might be time constraints. It might be that they put so much of their own stock and capital into something that if they have data that it loses, it might perceive them as like not being smart. Like there might be some, and that's why this is all politics. Like you just have to figure out what makes them tick. But you have to realize too that it is give and take. And if you're giving a lot and you haven't taken anything, you should reflect back and be like, what can we do to make this more mutualistic? But don't like always defer to being the politics guy. Well, I guess sometimes you have to play politics to beat the politics, but
yeah. I mean, like we're kind of like over the course of this episode, we've been talking about kind of like worst case scenarios and kind of like everything. Like you're beating your head against a wall. That's not going to be everywhere. Like you're going to find there's going to be teams, there's going to be people who like are looking for one thing, this person's looking for another, and like you got to read the room, you got to play the team game. But at the same time, getting buy-in and testing and experimenting is not solely just like a data game. And I think like that's what a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people who are new into the space and are like, oh, well, like, why wouldn't you want to get to 95% probability that this is the best before we like commit? Well, there's a lot of other factors at play. And like, you got to know how to play the political game to actually move things forward.
And that's why it's so funny you said that. That's why I think it's more of a product game than a CRO game, because the CRO might be more inclined to find the, objectively speaking, lowest risk decision to ship things. But the product person's like, that barrier is going to be less, and that product person tends to evaluate things more holistically. So that's where I say, like, from a product lens, you do have to try and evaluate more holistically. I think that part of product CROs should try and internalize as much as possible, because that's what will make you a confident CRO, and that's what people will want to work with. If you're the CRO who's like, I'm only caring about my KPIs, brand, I don't give a fuck, I'm going to test my shit. SEO, I don't give a fuck, I'm going to test. Like, no one wants to work with you. And then you're not going to get shit approved. You're going to run into your own mud. So
Yeah, and if you always are only like if you're going for risk mitigation and it's like I want to find as many like wins as possible, I want high impact, low effort, and I want to just like pump as many of these out as I can. That product person having a product lens, like you were saying, they're looking for big swing upside as well. It's like, hey, it might take more time, it might take more effort, it might be more risky, but it's like has the potential to 10x, has the potential to be a home run, has the potential to be a strikeout. And like that's okay. And like that's where the pairing of that product person with a CRO, with a data person, with someone on the experimentation side is like, how do we nibble at this before we take a full bite? How do we actually instrument and put the tests together to like go validate that direction instead of just taking the big swing? It's like both these worlds need each other, and you just need to be, again, you need to be able to bridge the gap in communication, care about what's important between these two worlds. And if you're a product person listening to this, it's the like everything we're talking about on the politics side and like making the inroads should go the other way as well, because that person on the CRO on the test side has a lot to offer to help you find that big swing.
Yes. Let me twist the Rubik's Cube a little bit. I thought about this a lot, and I've told CRO people who I've mentored and other people, I'm like, you should pivot more into product. I've made that own pivot. I've tried to move more into product because I think there is a limitation of like responsibility of an individual CRO or even a CRO team versus a product. Product, from everything that I've seen in-house, just has had more opportunity to actually affect big changes, more opportunity, more accountability, more responsibility, more like they just have like fucking more of everything. And the role of a product and CRO are so closely intertwined, if not like a concentric circle in terms of like overlap. Should more CROs try to pivot into product and Trojan horse CRO in the product lens? Because that's what I've been advocating more. I'm curious if you agree with that.
Yes. I think like my maybe hot take, maybe it's not actually that hot of a take, is like CRO has been put into a box historically.
Yeah.
And like for better or worse, it's just an is.
Yeah.
And if you're in CRO, you need to get out of that box. It can't be someone else comes up with a test idea and someone else comes up with a hypothesis and like they hand it to you and you run the experiment and you monitor that and then you give the readout back. Like that ship has sailed. That is gone. Like, especially in a world of AI, like people can put together like a quote instrumentation of the test easier, devs easier to do. What's valuable is the hypothesis, like building a strong hypothesis and being able to communicate the results of something that happened. And I think like that's what product, when I was talking about that high upside, that's what product has been all about. But it's not to say that someone in a CRO seat can't do that. You just got to like, you got to think bigger. You got to work into like the business principles. You can't just be like, I care about the like this unilateral, like singular test and I'm going to nerd out about that. You need to go like more holistic. You need to get yourself out of that box.
It's just it's evolution, right? Like the CRO role, I guess, is dying because it's like, have you ever tried to grow orchids?
No, but my mom grows orchids and she's like, whenever I have to look after them, there's a list this long of like all the shit I need to do to look after
I
this
have
flower.
killed so many plants that if there was a crime for killing plants, I would go to jail. There probably is. Sorry, don't arrest me for that. But like, I tried so hard to grow plants. I kill every fucking one of them. I had an orchid in Florida when I was living there for like a few months. And I read the instructions. Okay, direct sunlight for however long amount of time. I'm like, okay, I'll just leave it outside in my backyard, which gets direct sunlight in the Florida sun for like 12 hours. And it was so dead beyond repair. And it's like, all that to say, there's I don't know why. I don't know how relevant that story is. Maybe I just needed to tell people that I like killing. I don't like it. I kill plants. The evolution of all of this is we have CROs are dying because they're getting too much sunlight. Like they're not able to grow out of that. It is what it is. The plants outside is getting direct sunlight. It can't move. So you have to evolve because you're just not getting the resourcing. You're not getting the buy-in. You're not getting the money. You're super fucking underpaid all the time. You're just not getting these things. So we should evolve the mindset and change our role so we can continue to make that impact that we know is valuable. And those people, everyone appreciates the impact. It's just, I think it's just more of a perception thing, but we have to evolve.
I think like the biggest thing, I mean, one of the things at IntelliJAMS, testing experimentation inside of commerce, e-commerce. And I think one of the things that we're always pushing everyone who's working with us towards is you can't care about just convert, like CRO, it's even like a problem inside the name. It's like conversion rate optimization. We talk a lot about in commerce. It's like, what are you actually pursuing at the end of the day? Do I want more conversions? Like straw man, I can get your conversion rate to 100 by giving products away for free. Just like let people take it off the shelf. Like, cool, win? No. It's all about profit. Like it's all about revenue growth. Like every business is around to make money. So like how can you take the lens of the experimentation and start to apply it to revenue growth, better margins, higher profitability, and like get out of these kind of like what is seen as, again, that like P&L owners problems. Like that one tiny test is like so far buried on what that person cares about. But if it's like, yo, I'm going to put this together because my hypothesis is that we could raise our prices by 15% without taking a big conversion hit, and we'll actually be better off from like a profit per visitor standpoint. Okay, I'm interested. Like, tell me about what you want to do there, rather than like, hey, here's this one specific test that I want to run, and I'm hoping that like, give me the green light for it, and I'll tell you what happened. A little bit harder to sell.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun to just be in this field and have to have these complex conversations. I think this is all the stuff we need to talk about, because the people doing it are a lot. I say this as someone who's in the weeds doing it every day, right? Like sometimes you're just so focused on trying to ship the next test, do this stuff. You do have to sometimes pull yourself out and like, is this test worth shipping? Is this idea worth doing? Like, the test that you had prioritized for 6 months and you finally got it in the queue, it's like, is this still relevant? Like, is this still a business problem we need to solve for? Like, you should be asking these questions. And if you're not, and you're just going off a checklist and finding the next thing to run, I mean, you might drive results. You probably will drive results, but like, you might not have longer term sustained program growth for your program. I think that's the big thing I want to try and push home.
Yeah. All right. We've been waxing poetic about this for a bit. Dude, thanks for doing this with me. For anyone who wants to keep following along with you, LinkedIn, Twitter, carrier pigeons, like what's the best way to get in contact with you?
I would love if carrier pigeon was a way to contact me. That would be sick.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah. I'll have to get actually, would it be my carrier pigeon that I'd have to, I think technically they have to carrier pigeon to me with their own pigeon. That seems fair. Like, why do I gotta pay for this? You should be paying for this. No, I have a Substack, or sorry, I don't have a Substack. I have a Beehive. So from A2B.beehive.com. Memes. It's a conglomeration of content across like LinkedIn and some other channels like YouTube. I do skits, I do fun stuff. My podcast. Well, LinkedIn's probably the best way to find me, to be honest. That's where I'm probably the most active. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It's always fun to talk to and connect with other fellow podcasters in a podcast, be on the other side of the mic for a change.
We'll get all of those into the show notes so everyone can give you a follow. The memes are top notch. Everyone listen in. It's worth a follow, even if it's just for those.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.